questions left for you at the time we have is one is I think about one is, do you have a story where, because you focus on engineering to order, and of course that's Scott's background as well, that's where CADTALK came from, and do you have a particular client or story in mind where you use this where it was just amazingly effective, where you just like,
What,
man,
the fixed fee model?
yeah, where like, because
So for the last about 8 years or 7 years, actually just before COVID, we began doing all of our projects remotely with Zoom at the time, and now we use Microsoft Teams and at fixed fee. So virtually all of my ETO customers were implemented through fixed fee. Let me just I'm going to segue into ETO because I love ETO and it's a fascinating industry for me. So I think there's real challenge with ETO in a traditional manufacturing software or ERP manufacturing module, which is that the traditional ERP manufacturing module kind of assumes that the R&D process has preceded the first order being placed. Like somebody has done the analysis and the design of the product, and they've created it, and they've created the bills of material and the routings, and if it's multi-level, they've done all the different levels of it. And it's sitting there waiting for a sales order to show up. And when the sales order shows up, you order that widget, and then you can release the production, release the hands, and MRP can plan it and plan all your purchasing, and away you go and you manufacture that part. And that works great for any discrete manufacturing where it's repetitive. And that could be repetitive like 10 a year repetitive, and it could be repetitive where it's 10,000 a week, right? Or 1,000,000 a week. The problem with ETO is when the customer places the request for quotation, they just vaguely describe the problem they're having and have the outcomes that they want. And let's just say this is an example of a customer who bought an ETO product, not a customer who made an ETO product, bought one. Had a customer who assembled valves, made those little shut-off valves under your sink or under your toilet that would shut the water off. And they had one particular, let's pretend it was Home Depot, I don't think it was, that ordered like 1,000,000 of these a year, and it was hand assembled. It was like a lot of time. It was people with little white gloves, usually ladies, sitting at little tables. They put them together, they test them, put them in boxes, and you could only make like, let's say 1,000 a day. But they needed to produce a lot more. So they bought a automated assembly center that had vibratory feeds, and it had index tables, and it had robots that would pick parts up. And it was let's say a 20 by 10 encased in like basically paneled with transparent, paneling around it so you could see what was going on, some yellow cages, light curtains. So if you reached across, it would automatically shut off. But it was just automatically would make these valves. Well, who else buys that? Right? Like one other valve manufacturer someplace that has the same problem, but they don't make the same valves. So it has to be slightly different, and they don't make them at the same volume. And these guys made it so there was really one model that it would assemble, and somebody else might want it so it could do 20 different models. Like it's a very, very unique product that's only going to be made for this one company for this one reason. Maybe 10 years later, you're lucky enough to get it again. But also that ETOs are not very big companies often. They're often like 50 to 100 people. Some engineer founded them and loved designing and was sort of like an inventor and loved inventing things and started hiring more engineers to work for them. And then they have technicians out in the shop, and they often don't even have CNC machines or mills or lathes or make any parts themselves. They're really just designing, having contract manufacturers make stuff, and then assembling, really like the complexity of their internal manufacturing process is the assemblage, testing, qualification, creating the user guides and manuals that the employees of the customer are going to use, et cetera, et cetera. The company I worked for was a bit in the middle, but more like that than they were like a repetitive high volume manufacturing company. Yeah. And the problem with ETOs is if you use the production modules of most ERP systems, they just fall apart. They're just not really good for that. It's like, what do you mean I have to create a bill of material and a routing for every part I'm making? Like, I'm only going to make it once. I just want to send the drawing out and have the guys record the time against the drawing number that they made. That's all I want. I don't want a BOM. Here's the raw materials I need from my BOM on my detail drawing. Just buy the raw materials and then make the part. And I don't need a part number even for it. I don't need to create an item number to make the thing that goes into the machine. I have the drawing number. The drawing number is my item number. So what I began realizing, and it was a while ago, I had a die builder who was doing this. So they built transfer dies. And these are, if nobody's seen a transfer die, they're very large. They go on a very big press. There's a coil of steel goes through them. the press comes down, stamps them, and then it indexes. It moves forward a little bit every time the press hits the transfer die. Like the transfer is the motion of the part through. So that part goes through 5 steps but it's all inside the one press, inside the one die. So it's like it's hitting and repetitively, and that part pops out the end that's finished. And the big problem they were having was the communication between the engineering team, loading the bill of material into that, and the purchasing team buying all the parts they needed and making sure they were coordinated, because the engineers would change the drawing and the purchasing, it was all email. And so purchasing would miss the change and they would not buy that, guide pin or whatever it was that might be a little bit exotic and long lead time. And so now you have a $1 million die, literally we talk about it all the time, the $1 million finished good die missing the $10 pin, but has a 6-week lead time because it's exotic. It's fabricated in Japan and you have to wait 6 weeks to get it. So they're air freighting it and rushing it in emergency 911 because they have to get that to General Motors. So this is where I cut my teeth on ETO, is that kind of thing, like the company making the valve assembly, the company making the transfer die. And I decided to move into projects. I decided the projects module was a better place for this than the production modules. Projects in Business Central, touting Business Central because I think it's awesome. Projects in Business Central have something called planning lines, and planning lines in a project in Business Central can act like a BOM. They can have an item number on them, a quantity on them. Now they're not quantity pers, but that's okay because these are usually one-offs. They're systems. I'm selling a system. I'm not selling a repetitively manufactured part. So I could load the bill of material into the project module in Business Central, but the problem with it is it's not really designed to facilitate the purchasing process or the versioning control or the transfer from an engineering team to a purchasing team or the loading of the bill of materials into it, et cetera, et cetera. It's not well designed for any of that. So we have created some IP around the projects module in Business Central that, and we'd love if you guys were working with us and bringing that data in. And all of our customers usually say, oh, we want to look at CADTALK and see if we could import bills of material into it. And I say, absolutely, let's look at that as part of the project. It gets tabled and then sometimes it goes through, sometimes it doesn't. But what we want to be able to do from a customer point of view is we want to be able to take a bill of materials, load it into this project, and it'll be phased, it'll be in sections, it'll be in the main sections or segregated, but then communicate that to the procurement and planning department, who is going to make a use existing, make, if they have the production equipment, or buy decision about each item in that bill of materials as to how they're going to disposition it. And what we're trying to do is create that control process between the designing team and the planning team so that they have one center, what do they call it? Source of truth. They have one source of truth, which is the bill of material that's in the project. They're not working in Excel spreadsheets. They're not sending emails. It's all going through there. And then a whole bunch of, I'll call them macros, built into Business Central to facilitate the tasks that need to be done in an ETO project, like ship components from the project to the job site. Because I'm probably not going to ship this thing in a box. I'm probably going to break it apart into pieces, crate the pieces, ship it to the job site. And then in addition to that, projects work really well for an on-site installation and provisioning, which these guys usually don't just sell the product to the customer. They also include the delivery, installation, provisioning, debugging, training the employees, and final sign-up. It's all process or progress invoiced. It's percentage of completion, cost analysis, because the projects can stay open for a year to get some really complex stuff built. And it really is a very, very different way of implementing ERP. In some ways, it's simpler. Like I do find in a lot of ways, it's much simpler than traditional like production manufacturing. But in other ways, it requires a lot more consulting and understanding of their business to help them like design that project outline and the templates they'll use for their projects, because it's so flexible. You could get easily lost in analysis.
What you're describing is exactly the environment I came from too. I came from a essentially custom packaging machine manufacturer here in Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area, that made the machines that essentially their first machine was they actually made the soap press for Procter and Gamble to press ivory into the soap.
Okay.
So that was the little logo in, and then they do all the machines for like beer, to puts the bottles of Budweiser in the cartons. And there's like a certain amount of things that are reusable, but a lot of things are, bespoke to that to that customer. So it's a little bit in between, like you mentioned before. But I've worked with a lot of the kind of examples you use of the project based. It's interesting because like CADTALK, the idea came from that environment. That's what the original problem was. And we also use an Infor ERP at the time. I think
Okay.
the one we used was called Sightline at the time.
Yep.
And,
I'm familiar with Sightline. I worked with Visual ERP.
when you were describing, as soon as you started describing what you were talking about, I knew it was visual. I could tell by the way you were describing it. So it was like, but yeah, that was the, because Visual has some interesting things with projects like that, how they do leg assemblies and stuff like that, that makes that a little bit more possible. But yeah, that's interesting because like the reason why CADTALK always kind of worked with production is because that's how most people implement ERPs. So we had to like attack the market of what people were doing. So a lot of because not a lot of people don't understand ETO, a lot of ERP implementers will just do production bills,
Right.
and then we have to deal with like I would agree with you. The projects are the right way to do it. I've never met a lot of people who've done it that way, even though it's the right way to do ETO. You know,
I think we've rescued some customers who have started as an ETO, try to use production orders, and they've come to us and said, "This isn't working. Can we use the projects module?" Because they see that we have an app and AppSource. So Microsoft Business Central. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah,
I really love Business Central. I came from the Infor space. Infor Visual is really, really fantastically well designed for a manufacturing company.
okay, yeah.
You can't really use it in any other type of industry, and that's okay because that's not what it's designed for. It's called visual manufacturing, and it follows Apex best practices, and they've implemented basically everything a small, medium manufacturer needs to do in the system. I would give it like a 9.5 out of 10 on all of its base manufacturing capabilities. I'd give Business Central probably an 8.5 out of 10. Like I wouldn't give it a 9.5, but what Business Central does differently, and Business Central, I get like a 9.5 on the accounting, and Visual, I can't give that
Right. Yeah,
score. I'm not going to give the real score because it would be embarrassing, but not a 9.5 in accounting.
Exactly.
The AppSource, which is this app store, think about an iPhone and you just want to get another app on your phone. You go to the store, you click install, it installs. Maybe there's something like pay a subscription to use it, but super easy to do. That exists in Business Central. It does not exist in, as far as I know, in Infor products. It kind of exists in some products, like I think NetSuite has something like that. But the Business Central one is just tremendously more user-friendly and just full of apps. Like there are 9,000-ish apps in Business Central's AppSource. What it means, though, is that it's very easy to find very high quality, like really high quality add-ons for Business Central that bring it up to that 9.5 in manufacturing. And there are a lot of them. And often it will exceed where Visual is, because to get back to my, the Infor world, in the Infor world, a lot of the times they will create the add-on. It's their add-on, and therefore nobody else will create an add-on for that particular purpose because, well, they created one. They created a CRM add-on. So who's going to bother to create their own CRM for Visual if Visual has a CRM? It's just that as time goes on, they don't invest in it. And the product may have started off and been completely aligned with the market at the time it was released. But as time went on, it got further and further away from what a good CRM is considered to be. So the benefit to the Business Central AppSource is if you have released an app into AppSource and you just sit on it and you don't enhance it and you don't let it get better, you have a competitor in AppSource who is taking their app and making it better and better. So there used to be a production scheduling app, a finite capacity planning and scheduling solution in the Business Central App Store we liked, and we were selling it, but they've done less and less investment in it. And now there's another one that has come along and it's now surpassed it and it's better and it's priced about the same. They're competitive priced. And they both use the routings, production orders, machine centers, work centers that are part of basic Business Central. So it's not like they introduce new ways of creating BOMs or routings or machine centers. They may add an extra field here and there, for like setup optimization or something that Business Central doesn't have. But you could swap one out and swap the other one in. It's not a massive rework. You're not completely changing the product. It's like if you stop using the GPS you like on your iPhone and you switch to another GPS, maybe you got to put your favorite addresses in the new GPS, but it's not like you have to get a new iPhone. And I think that's what makes Business Central so good, because if you've outgrown part of it, chances are in AppSource, somebody has made a better mousetrap for you and you can do it. So for instance, you got clients who start off and they say, well, I want to do CAD integration. A lot of them say that, right? So I say, okay, are your CAD libraries good? Are you using PLM? Are you using Vault or using SolidWorks PDF. Like, how are you storing your drawings? Do you have them in libraries? Have you got standardized templates for your attributes, or the engineers filling all the attributes in? If you are, hey, let's go talk to CADTALK right now, because you're ready immediately to do that. But if you're not, you should talk to them anyway and find out what you should do to prepare so that you could use CADTALK. And that is an amazing opportunity. Like, and it's just really just go to AppSource, I think, download the CADTALK connector. You guys train them on how to use CADTALK, get CADTALK installed on their systems, and then start using it. And this is a lot easier than the old days when we had to do like a SQL integration with custom ERP 101. And then every time it upgraded, you had to redo it. Like all of that stuff's gone. It's completely changed the way you sell and buy ERP, because now you're buying a platform, not an ERP. You're buying a platform that has an ERP built into it, but then you can add to that platform through the App Store and just keep making it better and better. And I think Business Central is going to be one of those ERP systems where people have it for 30 years, but it won't be a technology debt. Right. It'll have just been continuously maintained and updated by Microsoft, AI integrated into it, new solutions coming in from Microsoft, and all the apps that are in AppSource, and people can keep using it for ages.
Yeah, because the way they built it, that sounds like that's a best, like that the incentives are aligning. Once again, like kind of the same similar conversation we had before, is like if you have competitors in there and there's a market to try to make it better, whereas you don't have this much vendor lock-in. And you have a vendor lock-in necessarily of Microsoft somewhat, but even then, but you have an entire ecosystem underneath it of people who are making the add-ons. So they don't have to actually make it. So you don't have a single vendor focus like your solution with the projects. You can say, as long as you're keeping that thing exactly aligned with what customers are asking for, and if you don't, then there will be another competitor in that ecosystem trying to take the business from you.
And somebody will build a better mousetrap than me, and then they'll sell it to the customers, and then I'll be out of business. So I have an incentive to continue adding features, make the product better, tighten it up, debug it better, like all of those things. So I think Business Central really, as a manufacturing ERP system, is very, very good. You do have to curate the right add-ons. There's a certain element of that. Some of them are very obvious, and everybody's selling the same set of about 6 to 8 add-ons that are just super popular for Business Central in North America. I think Europe, they have their own set. So it's a little bit of a Europe versus North America difference between them. But as a rule, I think that you can achieve the same quality of manufacturing capabilities within the system, whether you're looking at NetSuite or Acumatica or Epicor or Business Central, that you could bring them all up to the same level. It's just done a little differently. But in my mind, I'd rather have the Build-A-Bear ERP, right? The configurable ERP that I can build up and choose from different components and Lego blocks that will make it better, so that I can kind of, like, without any customization, I can make it custom.